My name is Sophia Reyes. I'm 34. 2 hours ago, my mother-in-law looked at my 7-year-old son across a birthday cake and told him to go eat with the staff because he wasn't real family. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I set down my glass, walked to the clubhouse office, and asked the manager to pull up an account. 90 seconds later, he called her by her account number instead of her name, and every single person at that party understood exactly who actually owned the ground they were standing on. Before I tell you what happened when she found out whose signature was on the deed to that entire property, tell me, where are you watching this from tonight? What time is it where you are? I always love reading how far these stories travel. I run a small private investment fund in Austin, Texas. Commercial real estate mostly, the kind of properties everyone overlooks until someone actually looks closely enough to see what they're worth. I've spent years being the quietest person in most rooms I walk into. People assume quiet means small. I've learned to let them. My husband is Daniel Whitfield, an orthopedic surgeon, and we married 5 years ago. My son Eli is from my first marriage. His biological father has never been part of his life. Daniel adopted Eli legally 2 years ago, on paper and in every way that matters. To Daniel, Eli has never been anything other than his son. To Daniel's mother, he's always been something else. I remember exactly the first time I understood how deep it went. It was 2 Christmases ago, Eli's first holiday as a legally adopted Whitfield. Carol had wrapped gifts for all 5 grandchildren and lined them under the tree by size, biggest to smallest, a tradition she was proud of. Tyler got a bicycle. Renee's twin girls got matching dollhouses, custom built, with their names engraved on tiny brass plaques above the front doors. Eli's gift was smaller than all of them, wrapped in leftover paper from a roll that didn't match anything else under the tree. He opened it carefully the way 5-year-olds do when they're trying to be patient. Inside was a plastic dinosaur, the kind sold in a 3-pack at the grocery store checkout line. Just one, not the set. Carol had apparently kept the other 2 for the girls' cousins on my side, even though Eli was also, on every legal document, one of the girls' cousins. Eli held that single dinosaur and said thank you because he's a polite kid, and I remember watching Carol's face as she accepted his gratitude without a flicker of discomfort. Like the mismatch didn't register to her at all. Like it wasn't a mismatch because in her mind, he simply didn't belong in the same category as the others to begin with. Daniel saw it too that year. He confronted her in the kitchen while I was helping Eli build a fort out of wrapping paper in the other room. I only heard fragments. Daniel's voice, tight and controlled. Carol's voice, defensive, repeating the same phrase she always falls back on. I love that child. I just believe in being honest about bloodlines. As if honesty and cruelty were the same outfit, just worn on different occasions. Cedar Ridge Country Club has been the Whitfield family's gathering place for 3 generations. Carol's late husband was a founding member. Every birthday, every holiday, every Sunday brunch happens on that lawn, under those oak trees, inside a clubhouse with brass plaques listing decades of Whitfield family dues. I never told Daniel's family what I actually do for a living beyond something in real estate. Not out of secrecy. Every time I tried explaining a deal, Carol's eyes would glaze over and she'd change the subject to her garden club. Eventually, I stopped trying. We were driving out to Cedar Ridge for Tyler's 10th birthday that morning, Eli in the back seat, clutching a present he'd wrapped himself, when Daniel reached over and squeezed my hand. "Try to let it go if she says something today," he said. "She's trying in her own way." I looked at him and didn't answer right away because we both knew exactly what her own way had produced 2 Christmases ago, and every year since. Have you ever had a family member draw an invisible line around who counts as real in your own life? Keep that question in mind, because what happens next is exactly that line, drawn out loud in front of 30 people. We arrived at 11. Carol sat under the oak in a folding chair like a queen holding court, greeting each grandchild individually. When she saw Eli, her smile shifted, just slightly. Polite, practiced. The smile you give a stranger's child, not your own grandson. "There he is," she said. "Daniel's boy." Not my grandson. Daniel's boy. She'd used that exact phrase in front of me at least a dozen times over the years, and it landed the same precise way every single time. Lunch went the way these things usually go: burgers off the grill, kids in and out of the pool, adults nursing sweet tea in the shade. Around 2, they brought out the cake. Carol stood to organize the singing, arranging the grandchildren into a loose semicircle around the table. Eli started moving toward the group with the other kids. Carol's hand came up, gentle, almost casual, resting against his shoulder to stop him. "Sweetheart," she said, loud enough that at least a dozen people heard clearly. "Why don't you go see if the kitchen staff needs help with anything? This part's really just for the real family." The lawn went quiet in that specific way a crowded space goes quiet when everyone heard the same terrible thing, and nobody knows whether to acknowledge it. Eli didn't cry. He's 7, and he's spent enough of his short life absorbing small cruelties from this particular grandmother that he's developed a kind of premature stillness around her. He just looked at me, silently asking whether he was actually supposed to leave. I crossed the lawn, crouched down next to him. "You're staying right here," I said, quiet enough that only he could hear it. "Go stand with your cousins." He did. Carol's face flickered, not with guilt, with irritation, the specific irritation of someone whose small cruelty had just been publicly overruled. I stood up, smoothed my dress, and walked toward the clubhouse instead of back to the party. 9 months earlier, Cedar Ridge had been quietly circling a financial cliff. Aging membership, ballooning maintenance costs, a board too proud to admit the obvious. My fund found it through a routine distressed asset scan. Nothing personal at first, just a well-located, badly managed property with real upside for anyone willing to actually invest in it. We closed the acquisition through a holding company 4 months before Tyler's birthday. I never mentioned it to Daniel's family. I didn't see a reason to blur business and birthdays. I walked into the clubhouse office. The young man at the desk, Marcus, glanced up and gave me the polite, distant look reserved for members who aren't quite important enough to warrant his full attention. "I'm sorry, can I help you with something? Club business is generally handled through your member liaison." "I need to see the Whitfield family account," I said. "And I need you to pull it now." "Ma'am, that's confidential account information. I really can't just—" I gave him the owner authorization code instead of my name. His posture changed immediately. The way people's posture always changes the instant they realize who they're actually talking to. "Mrs. Reyes," he said, "I didn't realize you'd be here today. Give me one moment." The account was still under Carol's late husband's name, technically active because nobody had bothered updating anything after he passed 4 years earlier. $7,200 a year in dues, paid automatically through an estate attorney's office, on autopilot for over a decade. I asked if there had been any issues with the account. Marcus hesitated, then told me the truth because I signed his paycheck. Dues had actually lapsed 11 months earlier when the estate firm changed software systems and the automatic payment silently failed. Under the old ownership, that kind of lapse for a founding family got quietly ignored out of habit and reputation. Under new ownership, meaning me, the policy was simple. Active membership required active payment. No exceptions, regardless of last name. Before I tell you what happened when I walked back out onto that lawn, has a family member ever made you feel like the ground under you wasn't really yours to stand on? Because in about 90 seconds, Carol was about to learn exactly whose ground she'd actually been standing on for years. I asked Marcus one favor. Not to embarrass anyone. Just to come find me at the party in 15 minutes. The way he would for any member with an account question. I walked back onto the lawn just as they finished the birthday song. Eli stood exactly where I'd left him, singing along a half-beat behind everyone else. Carol caught my eye across the crowd, and something in her expression told me she already regretted the moment, not because she felt bad, but because she could tell I wasn't going to simply absorb it and stay quiet like I usually did. Marcus appeared exactly on schedule, clipboard in hand, professionally pleasant. "Mrs. Reyes, sorry to interrupt. Do you have a moment?" "Just a small account matter." Carol's head turned sharply. Marcus, is everything all right? Actually, this concerns your account, Mrs. Whitfield, but I was told to route billing questions through Mrs. Reyes now. Confusion flickered across a dozen faces at once. I'm sorry, Carol said slowly. Why would you route my account through my daughter-in-law? Marcus looked at me, unsure whether he was allowed to answer directly. I nodded. Because Mrs. Reyes's company acquired Cedar Ridge in March. She's the majority owner of record. For a moment, nobody moved. Renee's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. Daniel walked over mid-exchange, his expression somewhere between confusion and the beginning of understanding. Carol laughed, short and disbelieving. That's not possible. Sophia does something in real estate. This club has been in the same family's hands for 11 years. It was, Marcus said carefully. Until March, when the previous ownership group sold to Lakeside Cedar Partners. And who runs Lakeside Cedar Partners? I do, I said. The silence that followed felt different from the one after her comment to Eli. That first silence had been embarrassed, uncertain. This one understood exactly what it was looking at. You've been sitting on my lawn, Carol said slowly, letting me plan my grandson's birthday here, knowing this whole time that I didn't buy this club because of your family, I said. I bought it because the numbers made sense. I never brought it up because it never occurred to me it needed to matter. Until today. Until you told my son to eat with the staff because he isn't real family. Daniel stepped closer, quiet, steady. Mom, what did you say to Eli? Renee finally spoke. She told him to go help the kitchen staff. Said the cake part was just for real family. Daniel's jaw tightened in a way I'd rarely seen from him. You're going to punish me, Carol said, over one comment by taking away something that's been in this family for 3 generations? I'm not taking anything away, I said. Speaking of which, Marcus, what's the account status? Marcus checked his clipboard. Delinquent, 90+ days. Formally suspended pending payment. Carol's chin lifted. Fine. I'll write a check right now. You can, I said. But per club policy, a suspended account gets reinstated after board review, which takes 30 business days. So today, tea and cake for your guests are on me. Renee tried to smooth things over the way she always does. Mom, maybe we handle this later, not in front of everyone. No, I said, calmer than I expected. What happened with Eli happened in front of everyone. This can stay in front of everyone too. I love that boy, Carol said, quieter now. I believe you think you do, I said. He looks so much like his father, she said. His real father. His real. Every time I look at him, he looks like a 7-year-old, I said. And if you see his biological father instead of your own grandson, that's a problem with your eyesight, Carol. Not his blood. Daniel spoke up, his voice steady but unmistakably firm. Mom, Eli is my son. Legally, emotionally, every way that matters. If you can't treat him the way you treat Tyler and the girls, I'm not sure how much more of this I can keep smoothing over for you. I found Eli by the pool fence a few minutes later, sitting on the low stone wall watching his cousins splash without him. Am I in trouble? He asked. No, sweetheart, not even a little. He picked at a loose thread on his swim trunks, not looking at me. Grandma Carol said I had to go help the kitchen. You don't ever have to do that. Not here, not anywhere. You belong exactly where your dad and I are standing. Always. He was quiet for a long moment, longer than I expected. Then he asked the question I'd been dreading for years without realizing it. Why doesn't she like me? Is it because I don't look like Dad? I sat down next to him on the stone wall, taking a second before I answered, because he deserved an honest answer, not just a comforting one. Some people get confused about what makes someone family, I said. They think it has to do with how you look or how you were born. But that's not what makes a family. What makes a family is who shows up, who stays, who chooses you every single day. Your dad chose you. I chose you. That's not confusing at all, even if Grandma Carol makes it seem that way sometimes. Why did that man call you the owner? He asked, his mood already lifting the way kids' moods do when a conversation moves towards something less heavy. Because I bought this place a while ago. It's mine. Which means nobody gets to tell you where you're allowed to stand here. Not even Grandma Carol. His eyes widened. You own the whole club? I do. Even the pool? Even the pool. For the first time since the cake, he smiled, small and a little disbelieving. Can we still swim? We can absolutely still swim. Later that afternoon, Carol found me near the clubhouse entrance. Are you going to make this difficult for me now? Out of spite? I'm not interested in spite, I said. I'm interested in you understanding that the way you've treated my son for 5 years has consequences, even if they show up somewhere unexpected. What do you want from me? Bring your account current if you want to keep using this club. That part's just business. But if you ever again suggest my son isn't real family in front of anyone, I won't step in quietly next time. She looked toward the parking lot, toward the small shape of Eli's head in the car window. I'll bring the account current, she said finally. And I'll try. With Eli. I'm not promising I'll be good at it right away. That's more than you've offered in 5 years, I said. I'll take it. I thought that was the end of it. It wasn't. Not quite. 4 days later, Renee called me, her voice careful in a way that told me immediately something was wrong before she said a single real word. Mom's been calling everyone, she said. Aunt Pam, Uncle Rick, even Dad's old college roommate. She's telling people you humiliated her on purpose, that you bought the club specifically to embarrass her in front of the family, that you've been planning this for months. I felt my stomach tighten, not from guilt, but from the familiar exhaustion of watching someone rewrite an event in real time to protect their own reflection in it. That's not what happened, and you know that, Renee. You were standing right there. I know, she said, and I could hear how much it cost her to say it plainly. I told her that. She didn't want to hear it. She's asking me to back her up, to tell people it was some kind of ambush. I don't know what to do. She's my mother. I understood exactly what position that put her in, caught between defending her own mother's version of events and defending the truth she'd personally witnessed. I'm not asking you to choose a side publicly, I said. I'm asking you to just not help her rewrite what actually happened. That's all. You don't owe me a defense. You just don't owe her a lie either. Renee was quiet for a moment. She called Eli's exclusion an overreaction on your part. Said kids get told to wait their turn all the time. That it's not that serious. Did she use the words real family when she told him to leave? I asked. Yes, Renee said quietly. I heard her say it myself. Then it's not about waiting his turn, I said. It never was. Carol tried one more angle before she gave it up entirely. She called Daniel directly, not to apologize, but to suggest that maybe, given everything, it would be healthier for the family if Cedar Ridge simply wasn't the default gathering place anymore. As if changing venues would erase what had actually happened there, rather than address it. Daniel told her calmly but without hesitation that the venue wasn't the problem, and moving the parties somewhere else wouldn't fix anything if the same comments followed them there. He told her plainly that if she wanted a relationship with Eli going forward, the relationship needed to change, not the location. That conversation seemed to finally land somewhere real. The calls to Renee and the extended family stopped within the week. I don't know exactly what shifted in her, whether it was Daniel's tone or the quiet realization that her version of events wasn't finding the audience she expected, or something more private she never explained to any of us. But the campaign to reframe that afternoon simply stopped. We didn't stop going to Cedar Ridge after that. Eli started asking to go more, mostly because he liked telling his friends his mom owns a whole country club, which is technically true and endlessly delightful to a 7-year-old. Carol's account stayed current. She handled it herself this time, the first genuinely independent thing I'd seen her do in 5 years. This past Christmas, almost exactly 2 years after the dinosaur, we were back at Carol's house for the holiday. I watched her hand out gifts under the tree, and for the first time since I'd known her, there was no size order. No mismatched wrapping paper set aside for one particular grandchild. Eli's gift was a telescope, the same tier and thoughtfulness as the twins' gifts, wrapped in the same paper as everyone else's. Oh, he opened it, delighted, and ran straight to Carol to show her the box, asking if she'd help him set it up later to look at the stars. She said yes. She actually sat down on the floor next to him 20 minutes later, in her good holiday dress, helping a 7-year-old align a tripod, patient in a way I had genuinely never seen from her before. It wasn't a complete transformation. There were still small, imperfect moments where old habits threatened to surface. Comments caught and corrected mid-sentence, effort visible in the pauses before she chose her words around him. But the distance in her voice when she said his name had closed. Slowly, unevenly, the way real change usually happens instead of the clean, instant transformation people want from these stories. I never set out to teach anyone a lesson using a business asset. I bought Cedar Ridge because the numbers made sense, months before I had any idea it would matter to my own family in a different way. But I've thought a lot since about how much power sits quietly in places people never bother to look. In unpaid bills nobody chases. In ownership nobody questions. In the assumption that the way things have always been is the way they'll always stay. If someone in your life draws lines around who counts as real family, pay attention to what that line is actually protecting. Sometimes it's a genuine boundary. More often, it's protecting someone's comfort at the expense of someone smaller and more powerless than they are. You don't need to own the building to draw your own line back. You just need to be willing to stand in the moment and say clearly, "This is my family exactly as it is," and that isn't up for debate. So tell me, if you found out you technically owned the ground under someone who'd spent years making you feel small on it, would you have said something in the moment the way I did? Thank you for staying with me through this one. If this story meant something to you, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. I'll see you there.